one of the major points that they made in the article, and it seemed like I read some quotes from the author of the study, the main lead author. They kept saying, when you separate out BMI, smoking, drinking, all those things, when you take those out, those have a higher correlation than the physical activity to reducing all-cause mortality. So they're just constantly pointing out that correlation is not causation, that when you exercise, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be healthier. Okay, but aren't they also kind of counter-correlating and saying, therefore, exercise is not going to make you healthier?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, the other part there is, as big of proponents as we are, or shills for exercise.
Yep. Big exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not saying that that's the only thing you need to worry about. I mean,
No.
again, it's just, you get so lost in the minutia of an individual paper, individual abstract article, that you just lose sight that, I mean, exercise is, people like Peter Attia, it's the, most potent longevity drug. And I like that.
It's a big lever.
It's a big lever to pull that most people can pull and have access to pull. You know, there are different, socioeconomic factors and such there as well. But in general, this is a place to start for the vast majority of people. But we're not saying that it's the only thing that matters here. And it's just that this idea that, see, if you control for BMI and you control for smoking, well, doesn't do anything. It's one thing to say that based upon their data set, but then they also put out this message that in the paper, I don't know if they were citing 1, 2, 3 specific studies. They made it seem like, see, these other studies that are looking at all cause mortality and, leisure time physical activity, they don't control for those things. We controlled for them in this study. I tried to look at some of those studies. I don't think that is completely accurate.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't want to act like I know everything here, but I'm not so sure that that's a correct assertion that they've made. All you have to do is look up a couple of studies in this ballpark, and they do control for those things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or at least they show some sort of attempt to do so. And you can't just control for everything.
Right.
Like there's just you can't just control yourself into control these variables into nothingness.
Yeah. You end up with a data set of one. So if that's the case, it seemed like they did say, oh, look, lower BMI, not smoking, and exercising all together result in a lower all-cause mortality.
Right. Which is what we've said always.
It was another study that basically, when you take that other stuff out of it, is saying exactly the same thing as all the others. And of course, somebody who is physically active, somebody who is in those top 2 tiers of leisure time physical activity is almost certainly going to not smoke, is almost certainly going to have a lower BMI than people who live a fully sedentary life.
Right.
Right.
And those things, like you're saying, those things go hand in hand. We don't say that exercising causes somebody to have a lower BMI.
Right.
Those things kind of go hand in hand. Exercise, truthfully, in the long run, is not the biggest lever to pull as far as somebody losing weight, let's say, and reducing their BMI. Yeah. But those things certainly in time, due to a multitude of factors, eventually go kind of hand in hand. As you exercise more and you do more resistance training and you become more adept, then there's enough research to say that yes, you can improve appetite control. Let's say. But yes, we're not saying that like exercise, that's the cause.
The only thing you need to
BMI. That's not, so it's all of those behaviors, it's like always, it's the chicken or the egg thing as well. And so I'm not in a position to totally disregard the epigenetic clocks and such either and say that there's no place for talking about biological age. There is absolutely a place to talk about that. I just don't know if that lumping all these things together and saying, okay, you know what? We were under the assumption that, again, leisure time physical activity, the way in which it was reducing all-cause mortality was this reduction in biological age. There's just more to it than that.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, exercising, increasing leisure time physical activity it's like a symptom, and it is like a sign of somebody maybe increasing their other health promoting behaviors and doing additional things and starting to quit smoking, starting to drink less.
Yeah.
Starting to buy, eat differently when they're at restaurants. It's this complicated cloud of things that you can't quite just control for, no matter how sophisticated your statistical model is,
especially over 45 years.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
One thing in the actual study conclusion, it said, quote, being active may reflect a healthy phenotype, that being your genetic profile, instead of causally reducing mortality. So, I mean, that sounds to me like they're saying, look, your genetics are your genetics. You're going to die when your genetics say you're going to die, and that's all there is to it. Don't even bother exercising.
It sort of puts that message forth.
Right. And that's nonsense.
It is. It's a little too, I don't know, sensationalist, or not. It's not the right message. I don't know. For the vast majority of people in this space that know what they're talking about, I don't really think they bat an eye at this.
Yeah.
I just think it's just another thing to consider. There's just no way we can say exercise makes you age quicker based on this research.
Yeah.
Does it, okay, if we're looking at biological age, does it drastically reduce it to a magnitude that we care about right now that we can tell? Probably not.
Right.
But is it all we care about as biological age?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because again, just back to, you start exercising, you increase your leisure time physical activity, all these things start to happen. You start to care about your lipid panels. You start to care about your cardiovascular risk and your family, all those things, your family history, and maybe screenings and blood pressure screenings and all these things. Those things obviously play a role in biological age.
It's a positive health snowball.
Right.
Once you start it rolling, maybe with some leisure time physical activity, you start watching what you're eating. You stop smoking. You do some other things, and that snowball picks up speed and picks up weight, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it has a bigger impact on not just expected lifespan, but your biological age, whether or not that really is relevant in most people's lives.
That's the sentence right here in the article. The researchers concluded that those who exercise may not live longer because of their workouts, but because they generally live healthier lives.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
it's not just
one might, right. It's like one might say we just talked ourselves in circles about this thing, but I don't care.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It is. It's relevant. People need to know this. What's a takeaway? What is that people need to hear who have maybe just stumbled on this article or found this episode? What is it that we want them to hear coming out of this?
I still think there's no downside to thinking critically about something that seems so black and white. Exercise is good for you. It reduces your likelihood of dying, or, increases your life expectancy.
Right.
Something so commonly agreed upon at this point, like a paper like this, which ultimately kind of calls that into question in terms of biological age. I think it's okay that if you read that headline that makes you, think a little differently or think a little deeper about it.
Sure.
And I also think it's okay to look at this and say, okay, there is another side.
Yeah.
There is a point at which theoretically somebody might be exercising past a point where they're realizing any sort of benefit. Not saying they're going to die quicker potentially because of it.
Sure.
This study might suggest that.
Right.
But it's okay to be exposed to that idea that there is another side.
Yeah.
But again, for the vast majority of people, and for the vast majority of people that, feel some type of way seeing this headline, you don't have to really worry about that other side yet. It takes a whole heck of a lot of exercise to be on the other side of the U-shaped curve here that they're talking about at the point where exercise can be, harmful to your biological age. So in general, I wouldn't let this change anything. I would be open about biological clocks, know that that's something you're going to keep hearing more and more about.
Right.
I would be skeptical about those things. I would be open to the, extreme exercise hypothesis, or kind of that there is a potential other side to this.
Sure.
And then, start now, start yesterday. What about the downsides of not starting?
Right.
You know, what about the risk of not going from 0 to 1? This does not change that recommendation, which is so fundamental to what we talk about anytime exercise gets brought up.
Right. There's still a mountain of evidence suggesting this is what you should do.